Welcome everyone to the April meeting of the Colorado Springs Astronomical Society.
Well, that was intimidating.
Scott stared.
All right. My name is Scott Donnell. I'm the president of the Colorado Springs Astronomical Society, and with me in the room is our vice president, Jim Urim. Put your hand up right there. Tom DeClue, our treasurer. The previous meeting I referred to him as our secretary and got spanked for that. But our secretary is Fred Goodman is our secretary. Doug Cook, I don't see Doug in the room. So he's our member. He's the other officer.
He's at large.
He's at large. Yeah, thank you. All right. So one of the first things that we'd like to do, first of all, welcome. And one of the first things we'd like to do is to have visitors and very, very new members introduce themselves and just talk a little bit, very briefly, about who you are, your interest in astronomy, and what brought you to our meeting tonight. Because with that weather out there, you had to really be determined to get here. So I'm going to start at the back of the room and work my way forward. So I'm going to start with you two. Are you members? Are you visitors? Sorry? Okay, then you stand up and tell us.
My name is Kaylee. I'm Courtney.
Hello, Kaylee. Hello, Courtney.
And we're just interested in astronomy. Just wanted to come check it out.
Well, very good. Glad to have you. Sitting next to Kaylee and Courtney is David. Very good.
I'm David Strong, and I was invited here by George White. I work at Harris with the Space Surveillance Telescope and the GEOS telescope systems. I also work at the Academy with Falcon telescopes and do SSA research or space surveillance research with small telescopes. So that's kind of my background. I've been doing that since 2004 with the Air Force. Hired a couple years ago. Continue to work with telescopes. I have my own NEAT telescope that I'm trying to get going, despite the deer attacks. That killed it once. It's coming back together.
And what will you be doing the third week of June?
Oh, the third week of June, I will be giving a guest presentation at the Rocky Mountain Solar Stereo.
Deer and how to avoid them. I think it's tough.
Just for the record, we don't expect our visitors or new members to do a presentation or anything.
Yes, we do.
All right. So let's see. Kind of continuing. Yes, sir.
My name's Norm Black. I joined the organization back in February. I've been following along with the posting of some of the presentations on YouTube. So I figured it was better to actually come and see it for myself because it's a little off sometimes. Unless you can actually nail the people's feet to the floor so they stand in one position, then it works out great. Otherwise, they wander around. It's kind of hard to watch. But I've been into astronomy since I graduated from San Diego State long time ago in astronomy. Retired Air Force, space ops, that's what I did for 25 years. And currently, I have been for many years, since 2001, one of NASA's solar system ambassadors here in Colorado Springs. I do a lot of outreach in classrooms, no matter what it is. I've done everything from preschoolers to college level. Preschoolers are a whole lot more fun. And I'm also the person who established and I operate the Starbright Observatory here on this side of town.
Where is that at?
That's on the grounds of Trailblazer Elementary School. I've been running it for 13 years now. Currently, we have a 12-inch ME telescope in there that's on loan to me from the Colorado Springs Science Center project because they had no place to put it. I said I've got a perfect place to put it.
And you're being far too modest. You know, an awful lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, I do. I wrote some of the original requirements. Show you how old I am.
All right. Let's see. Kelly, Matt, you're actually recent members. You've already done this. So past Carol, James, we know you've been here many, many times. Thanks for coming back. And then are you a new member?
Yes.
You are.
Yes.
Can you tell us about yourself?
Hello. Hard to follow up that with anything really good. I'm taking a astronomy class at with Pikes Peak and hanging out with Brian, Floyd, Jeff, past couple weeks.
Bryce?
Bruce.
Bruce.
That's failing grade.
What's it like being a student throughout the career?
He's not my instructor, so I'm good there.
The other one's here too.
Talking to Doug.
Who is your instructor?
Doug Cook.
Doug Cook.
I got that one right, 50-50. Come on. I know like astronomy, physics, like 4 or 5 years ago, and I've just been loving it ever since. I do fiber optics for a telecommunications company just down the street at the data center. And this is a great little way just to sneak out for a couple hours.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else in the room that I may have missed? New member, visitor? Yes. Wait, then we have one in the back. Let's do you and then we'll do the back.
Hi, my name's Daryl Hedges. My wife and I moved to the Denver area in late July. I live in Morrison, which is up in the foothills just southwest of Denver. I've been active in astronomy for over 30 years. I was the program chairman for the Lake County Astronomical Society back in Chicago. My interests are primarily astrophotography, satellite tracking and observing, and something you may not think of as an astronomy-related hobby, but high altitude ballooning. I send weather balloons up to 100,000 feet with GoPro cameras and flight computers. And if anybody's interested in doing that, let me know. I need a ground crew, so.
Daryl, all you gotta do is aim them that way.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
My name is John. Been hanging around with some star parties occasionally over the last 5 years with you guys, so couple of familiar faces. But me and Dad just found a good deal on a 12-inch bead, so I figured it's time to start showing up for the meetings and start learning some stuff about how to use it and hanging out with you guys. So,
Okay, well, this is the right place.
Dad lives up off Teller 11, so nice patch of dark sky up there. Chris Peterson, John Sellers, we know both of them up there, so I think they're a couple of your regulars and out. So.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you. All right, did I miss anyone? All right, so with that, I would like to turn it over to Dave Warner for what's up in tonight's sky.
Ooh, that's dark up there. All right. Hi, I'm Dave Warner, Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. This is our What's Up for May 2017. Am I in the right place? So let's go on to the next slide. Oh, thank you very much. All right. So what's left to see in April? On April 25th, we have Venus at its greatest brightness. So it's in the morning. It's coming up. It's going to be that brightest object in the morning sky. We just saw it, in the evening and saw that greatest brightness. It's gone around on the other side of the sun. Now it's at its greatest brightness on April 25th. So on April 28th, Mercury and Uranus is only 0.08 arc minutes away from each other. It's a morning event, but it's only about 13 degrees from the sun. So that would be a hard one to see, but I thought that's a really close conjunction, so I thought I'd mention it here. And then on April 29th is International Astronomy Day. Unfortunately, April 29th right now, weather-wise, isn't looking all that great. We do have a star party on that day, and Hal's going to talk about that in a little bit. Next slide. So now we get into May. We got all month long. We got Jupiter's up there. It's already high in the sky by this time. Now that when the sun is set, it's up there in the east, the southeast, in the sky. It's also at a time where a lot of the Galilean moons are transiting across the disk. I ran through some software that I have to look, and all but Callisto are going across and going behind. So those are awesome to look at. I didn't have any specific ones that I wrote down for the month of May. on when it'll be dark here in Colorado Springs to go look at those. But you can look when you got a nice clear night. You can look to see what those transits are. Sky and Telescope makes a Jupiter's moons app for iPhones, maybe for Androids too. I'm not sure. Windows phones, I'm not sure as well. But that's a good way to check out Jupiter. It's an awesome site. It's a little further away in its apparition this year than in past years, but still it's a bright and a big nice object. We look at that at all of our star parties. On May 6th, Mercury's at aphelion. Mercury has a unique orbit. It's very centric in that when it's closest to the sun, it's only 0.307 AUs away. When it's at aphelion, it's 0.467 AUs away. So the amount of energy coming from the sun is a whole lot less when it's at its furthest point away from the sun. So just a little quick science fact for you there. The Eta Aquarid meteor shower is on May 6th. That has an hourly rate of about 40 meteors an hour. Unfortunately, it's going to be below the horizon at midnight, so we probably won't see a whole lot of meteors from that, but it does have a pretty high count, so get out under the dark skies and see some of those meteors that you might see. On May 10th is a full moon. I just wanted to mention it here, and that the Native American cultures and others always have these names. You see these picked up nowadays in the media, and the names for the May moon are full flower moon. That's when the plants are all blooming, so they called it that. The full corn planting moon, guess what? And then the milk moon, and I don't know why about that one, but I guess when the cows are ready to milk, I guess. Next slide.
Once a year.
So that's right, once a year. You got to get it when you can. All right, what else is there? On May 13th, the moon and Saturn are 3 degrees apart. May 15th, the moon and Pluto are only 2 degrees apart. That's because of the change differences in magnitude between the moon and Pluto. That one's a hard one to see, of course. Then May 17th, Mercury is going to be at its greatest western elongation. Doesn't get very far away from the sun, but that's your opportunity in the morning to get out there and see Mercury when it's furthest away from the sun. And then on May 19th, the moon and Neptune are 26 arc minutes apart. Next slide, please. So some of the key deep sky objects to look at in the month of May is M5, which is a great globular cluster in Serpens. So it's not real bright, but it's a challenge object for you to go find. And M4, which is a globular cluster, is Scorpio. And I thought it was interesting that Scorpio is already coming up, in the midnight hour. That's your chance to go see all the different great objects that are over in Scorpio. And then best bets for astrophotography. I've got a book which is 100 best targets for astrophotography, and it goes month by month on which targets. And that book identified M109, which is a galaxy. We're in galaxy season, by the way. Right now, when we look at the night sky, we don't have the summer Milky Way, and the winter Milky Way is already, just setting behind the western horizon at sunset. So we're right in that in between where we're looking out away from the disk of the Milky Way, and what we see is all those galaxies and things out there. So M109, NGC 4244, which is a silver needle galaxy. M106, M100, Darkarian's chain of galaxies, which I'll show a graphic on that in a second. The NGC 4565 needle galaxy, another popular one for imagers. M104, M64, M51, of course, the Whirlpool galaxy, another real popular object for astrophotographers. M63 and the Leo triplet up in Leo. Next slide, please. So there's also one comet that I wanted to point out. It's still up there. We mentioned it last month. Now it's down past the head of Draco, or going past the head of Draco. Best seen in the morning. As it's circumpolar, but it's best seen in the morning time. So I got this from cometchasing.com. You can go on there and get your own little finder chart about where it is. Nice little green ball up there in the sky. Next slide. So just captured a couple of little places to take a look at. As you can see, all those little circles there, those are individual little galaxies to go look at. So coming down from the Big Dipper, some of them have the M designations of Messier objects. When we were, we did a little bit of our in-reach on Saturday, out to Rama State Wildlife Area. And this is the area that I was playing around in, is looking at all these different, these galaxy clusters here, being Comet Berenices, Canis Ventucci, and of course there's some major. Next slide. And then over here, underneath Arcturus and off to the right of it, there's that big cluster of galaxies there, the Virgo cluster. M5 that I mentioned is over there at Serpens. So some of those are a little hard to, track down exactly where they are because of the brightness of the stars. Are kind of in no man's land. But you start with Arcturus and then, do some star hopping to get you down to where these different objects are. So next slide, I think that's it. So that's all I have. Next month.
Okay, observing reports. So this is the opportunity for those of you that, if you had a lucky break, well, I guess maybe last Saturday, the reach was out at Rama. So it's time to talk about what you've observed recently. So, Tom, the clue.
Yeah, a little report on what I didn't see. I think it was Thursday night. We had a close approach of a near Earth asteroid, and I actually went out. It looked pretty good when I went out and opened up and got my scope pointed in the right direction. I took a look at Jupiter while it was getting dark, and then so this was near it. This was an asteroid that passed by Earth about 1 million miles away, about 4 times the distance to the moon, and it was it should have had pretty noticeable motion, but it started clouding up, and so I had some coordinates, and I steered to those coordinates, and okay, I see some stars. It looks like the right place, and then the clouds move in. And wait, and there's those stars again, and something moving, another cloud. I did that for about an hour, and I found the big file. By then, it had become 100% overcast, so I just had no luck. I don't know if anyone else went out for a near-Earth asteroid. 2014, something, but it would have been cool to see. I tried it, but weather didn't cooperate.
Well, if you or anyone else gets a chance, another opportunity like that, it's really cool. I mean, the movement's like the hour hand of a clock. You don't really see it moving, but it's just when you kind of say, oh, looks like it's on a line between these two stars, and you see that line starts getting broken, you start noticing that it's moving.
It was an predicted 11th magnitude, so it should have been pretty noticeable. I would think, even I was using my 5-inch scope, that should have been plenty enough.
Well,
anyways, that's my observing.
Thank you, John. Others.
On February 19th, I actually was in Florida to see SpaceX's launch of the Falcon 9 rocket from Pad 39 Alpha. It just so happened, my wife, Kate, and I were down there, and I looked at things to do, and it just so happened to be the rocket launch. That was cool. And also got to meet an astronaut, Bruce Melnick, who was on Space Shuttle 41 and 49. Got to do a meet and greet, get his autograph, and take pictures with them.
Were you able to see the booster come back?
No, from where I wasn't able to see it land, but I had a NASA feed on my phone where I got to see it land, but from where I was standing, I
Was this a barge or was this on land?
it was on land.
Yeah.
It was weird.
So was there like a delay between when you saw the rocket light up and then the sound?
Yes.
That's like 5 seconds or so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Jim.
As Dave said, we were out at Rama State Wildlife Area Saturday night. The sky was amazing. The wind was a little chilly, but I guess there were 2 things I want to talk about. I'm going to editorialize for both of them. The first one was we looked at the Orion Nebula, and I wanted to mess around with his filter because I always hear that those ultra high contrast filters don't work well with like a refractor, a smaller aperture telescope. You know, and I will say that's a lie. So if anybody tells you that, that is not true. They're on there, and it looked absolutely amazing. So that was pretty cool. The other thing is, this is not an astronomical observation. This is a personal observation. We saw some other astronomers out there. They drove all the way down from Denver, and I will tell you, I think that's a pretty good area, as close to town as it is, because it's about a 40-minute drive for me to get out there. And the sky was amazing. Some folks drove all the way down from Denver, and they said it's worth the drive to them, because they said living up there, there's really not a lot of good places to go that's easy access and all that. So I would say when we do our next one, I think, I don't know where Dave went to, but I think July is our next one.
Yeah, I think so.
In the middle of July sometime. I would say if you can make it out there, come out. It's really worth it. It's a nice area, and it's a pretty peaceful place. So anyways.
Yeah, July 15th.
Okay, other observing reports? Going. Okay, gone.
Sorry. Well, I thought maybe Brian, what happened? A few of us supported the Broadmoor Space Symposium this month. And so I thought I'd report on that. Going backwards, yeah, you were out the Wednesday night for the Star Party. So a group of us, and lots of people got to see the moon. Jason was out. One more, who else? Ralph.
Jason and Ralph.
And Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph out there.
And then the night before, Brian and a bunch of us were in to do an astrophotography at one of the Space Foundation events, where we got to see Buzz Aldrin. Brian, I brought in a picture that I finally printed. This is Andromeda that I took a year and a half ago through my 80 millimeter refractor, which is a 600 millimeter. And so this is through my DSLR. And so I had that there at the stop. So I'll just have this here. So there's a break. So if anybody wants to come up and take a close look, feel free. Feel free to pick it up. It's plastic laminated, so you can't. Well, you can hurt it, but feel free to handle a galaxy.
So something else I'd like to add to that. We have business cards in the club, and the photograph of the Orion Nebula on here was taken by Jason Furman.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Courtesy of Jason Furman. So, yep, that's yours. And we're getting ready, or I'm getting ready to do another set of these cards, and that would be, I'm looking for a different photo like this, but I want to rotate it around. That would be an excellent photo to put on our
You're
card.
welcome to it.
Thank you. Okay.
You have to send me an email.
It's gonna be a very big card, by the way.
It's like,
Tiny pocket size. So with that,
I'll be right back.
outreach.
Can I go after?
You can go after, let's see.
I'm gonna go grab some of the pamphlets.
Let's do treasury report. Huh?
I just got.
Oh.
Okay, we haven't spent much money this month. As far as balances between the PayPal account and our credit union account, we have a total balance currently of $21,874. I would say that I know that I don't want to take the thunder away from RMSS, but we're about halfway there in terms of. It looks to me like I was just looking at registrations and income from that. So we're about halfway in terms of the numbers of people that signed up for the Rocky Mountain Star event in June, and in terms of income as well.
I also saw there was an email from the Astronomical League for our membership, annual membership.
Right. I need to get it. I need to talk to them about a couple of things before I pay that.
Okay. Right. Okay. So giving Hal another second to come back, and I interject something here. So Dave Warner.
Yes.
This is gonna be a two-parter, okay? So Dave Warner has received an award through the Astronomical League for Master Outreach. Now, the reason why it's gonna be a two-parter is because he knows, yeah. I forgot to bring the packet that came in the mail. So we'd like to do the formal presentation, but I didn't want to wait until next month. I think it's really important to acknowledge that. So it's actually be a double, we'll acknowledge it tonight just verbally, and then next month we'll do the actual award presentation.
We'll clap then too.
And then we'll clap. That's actually quite an accomplishment. So could you just briefly tell us what the requirements were for the Master Outreach Award?
Yeah, the outreach award for the Astronomical League is there's 3 phases. There's the basic award, which is just do 10 hours of outreach, and you can get the basic award. And then the stellar award is 50 hours additional on top of that to get the stellar award, and then the master award is to get an additional 100 hours on top of that. So I did like almost 100 hours of outreach by itself last year. So I was able to get that all documented. And there's some, you have to log your outreach of, what outreach did you do, a little bit about, what you showed everybody, and record the hours and the number of people that you reached. And, it's good to do it anyway, because it gets you an idea of how many thousands of people over the course of a year, if you're doing a lot of outreach, how many people out there you're actually reaching. So
what's the number?
I had like 3,550. I think was what my total number is of what I've recorded so far.
Nice.
So, and I didn't record when I first started doing outreach. I was just doing outreach, and I was like, hey, you know what? I can get credit for this. I can get a pin and some pen. So I started writing this stuff down.
Do you have to keep track of who comes back a second time?
No.
Those don't count. But
Correct, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are the first and only recipient of this award. Oh, Master Outreach?
Yes.
Sorry. The second one.
4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay. 4 years. I know you worked in the Carbon Star program. You did SCA objects.
I have 9 of the awards.
Yeah.
And once I get the 10th one, then I can apply for the Master Observer.
Okay.
I'm only 52 objects away from getting the Herschel 400 completed.
Okay. Well, that was so. Yes, stand corrected. Still, it does not detract from the accomplishment of.
No, that's
very good.
So, I would like to turn it over to Hal for outreach.
Could I have the calendar, please? So a couple of things in outreach we've been doing. It only took me 2 years, but we do now finally have a new pamphlet to hand out at events. I updated it. It's mostly about me.
what is it?
That was always my thought. But I have 1,000 of these made, and we'll see how long that lasts. It's about a third of a year, based on, because I think we did about 3,500 people last year. Not obviously everybody gets one. We also now have 1,000 of these, and 300 have been taken out for RMSS envelopes. Everybody goes to RMSS to get one. But then the outreach will have these for the, and they're stylish, and we got Tom ordered them from the Astronomical League. They have a nice little thing that says where you actually document, I saw the eclipse, and you put down where and when and all that. So you document it right on the glasses. Okay. Walk the runway with them? Yeah, what's that?
You're not going to runway with them?
No. Because I'm not. So as you can see, we are getting busier and busier. We do have a few things coming up. Let's see, today, so we're there. We have this week coming up the Star Party. Whoops, wait, sorry. Can I get to 1 week there? We go.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Coming up this Friday is the fossil beds. If you haven't been to the fossil beds before, you're probably not going Friday. But I will say this. You want to watch the forum carefully, because the last time we had this kind of weather here, I called Jeff the ranger,
He said, what are you talking about? It's completely clear here. We would have had a great night. So do not, now, based on the weather pattern, but check the forum, because sometimes the weather in Florissant is very different. Again, if you haven't been there before, you owe it to yourself. It's higher, it's farther out. Amazing seeing out there, just absolutely gorgeous. And then the next night, the 29th, is our monthly star party here. This one in Palmer Park. Again, keep an eye on the forum. I want to point out as we go to May here, May 1st is the first of a regular series of star parties we're going to be doing for the Garden of the Gods Visitor Center. This is actually, you can go to May now if you want. This is actually pretty neat. We've done 2 preparatory lectures. I gave a talk, kind of intro to astronomy, in March. Bruce gave a talk on ancient astronomy in April. And we're starting up what we think will probably be monthly star parties at the Visitor Center. Now, we looked at thinking about trying to do it in the park, but it's really hard in the park because there are really tall, rocky things that block off entire sections of the sky. So if you can picture the Visitor Center, right in front of the Visitor Center, there's a little traffic circle, and that traffic circle will be where we will be. So again, it's a regular public outreach, but I'd especially be grateful for help at that one because it's the first time. The Garden of the Gods people are very excited, and they propose, they're going to be charging people for things. They propose to give us half the money if it works well. So it's in our fiduciary interest to try to have a good turnout. Then another new one out here on May 3rd. Again, you see things are filling up. Banning Lewis Ranch Star Academy, that's a school out east. I think we were there last year also. And then a relatively new one in Peyton on the 5th, actually on the football field. I referee high school football, so I've refereed there. So it'll be nice if I'm able to go to be on that field and not have people yelling at me that I'm blind. Shut up. Horizon Middle School Star Party, I want to point out again, Dave has been doing heroic work. He's done daytime lectures out there a lot. We have Girl Scout camp. The Girl Scout one, more details will follow. Those tend to be giant, 400 12-year-old girls. And they're nice. They're very nice. And it's a fun thing to do because they're generally very excited about it. We have, again, Public Star Party, Falcon Park. Again, Dave giving me a lot of credit for reasons you'll see in a minute. He's scouted some sites, and that's where we're doing the Rama thing. And at Falcon Park, we'll see how that goes as well. I think it'll be great. Keep your eye on this. More things will fill in. It is an unusual day, unusual 2 or 3 days that a request does not come in for a star party. So these things happen. And then we go to June real quick, please. Just to get ahead of the game a little bit. Kind of standard monthly star party, back at the fossil beds again. We'll talk about RMSS in the next slide. So that's kind of what's going on here. On the radio, looking up, Bruce and I will be in the studio again tomorrow recording the 5 episodes for May. May is a 5 Monday month, which is irritating. We recently actually changed format. We went from a 2-minute to a 90-second looking up, mostly because they were tired of me, but also apparently 90 seconds is the metric for national radio. Because again, KRCC is looking at trying to syndicate looking up now. So that could be a real feather in our cap. And so we also are a podcast. You can now get us on iTunes. You go to iTunes, you put in looking up, you can download. I don't think, we started over 2 years ago. I think only the last year's worth are up now. But they're kind of fun. And so that's what's going on with looking up. I've been director of outreach for 714 years. I think that's how it feels.
Dog years.
Dog years, yes. Yeah, even in that, it feels right. Been doing it a while, and I am actually, this is my last meeting as director of outreach. And so, Scott found me sobbing by the side of the road and said, what do you do? So I'm going to step away from running outreach. Dave Warner has volunteered to take over, which I think is just terrific. The board has to technically decide. Okay, so Dave, starting in about 30 seconds, Dave is the outreach director. So in my car, I've got 4 boxes of stuff, including 1,000 of these and 1,000 of these. And the moon rock. You get custody of the club's moon rock. Yeah, we have a moon rock. And so anything with outreach from now on, it goes to Dave. And Dave, I really appreciate, in addition to everything else you're doing, taking this task on. Any outreach questions at all? If so, they're for Dave. Okay.
Hey, I do want to add one thing. On the 6th of May is Muse Comics.
Yes.
We always go on their pre-comic book day. We go to Muse Comics to set up our solar telescopes. And while people are standing in line, they can come over and look at the sun. We can do some different sun-based activities with them. That's on 6 May. Setups at 10 o'clock. It's not on the calendar currently, but it will be after the end of tonight. But if you have a solar scope that can support, come on out and do that with us.
I'll mention one other thing we're doing.
Get some pre-comic.
Oh, and it's not just solar. I chase Venus during the daylight. So we do some planetary if it's possible when we're out there. So, it's fun, especially seeing all the costumes. Man, you see some great stuff. Okay.
Sorry. And also on May 6th, give a sense of how we're doing well in outreach, and Dave, I think we'll be doing even better. We just got asked, I don't even think you know this, I got asked today by DSC, which is a corporation that does parties for big corporations at the Broadmoor and such. We just got asked to do another one on May 6th. They pay us $500 a pop, and I think we've got 3 of them scheduled already. They only take 2 scopes, but it's a pretty neat deal. And it's kind of fun. One of the groups last year was the Learjet Pilot and Owners Association. So yeah, they could afford the Broadmoor. They did not tip me well. So that's all for outreach.
Okay, thank you. And congratulations, Dave Warner, for your new assignment as our new Director of Outreach.
In fairness, I would like to suggest that you double his pay for what you were paying me.
And Cal, thank you for all the time and effort you put into our outreach. And so thank you for that, and good to know that you're smoothly transitioning into good hands over here. So, Bruce, if you give me just indulge me, I want to mix it up a little bit, and I actually want to, we're going to get into community reports, kind of watching the clock here, make sure we get Brian adequate time and we have a break. So I want to do the Starry Meadows committee report, and so Al and Tom. There you are. Tom's got a couple things he wanted to. He's got a couple photos he wants to show. So Al, would you give us kind of a brief on Starry Meadows progress, and then turn it over to Tom? Where do you want me to stand?
Yeah.
Let me know.
How far back? Keep going.
For those that don't know, the club owns 35 acres of land down near Gardner, Colorado, which is in the middle of some pretty fantastic dark skies. And if you've never been there, you should be there. Coming up on the Starry Meadows calendar, May 20th is our annual work day. We've got a few trees to knock down, a room to add in the building, and an observatory to
construct.
Great
That's a
ground.
good word, construct.
Great
Yeah.
ground.
So, and I'm sure we'll find some other projects to do as well. As a token of minimal enticement, we may have some hamburgers. More hamburgers. So, and it's also a good weekend to do a little nighttime observing if you'd like to be there. If you're not too worn out from the day's activities. And of course, the following weekend is Memorial Day weekend. And then the following month, we have a little gathering, about 300 people called Star Stare. So I was going to head down this weekend. I don't think I'm going to make it. If I try, I may not make it back. So
good choice.
It's supposed to get a little snow down there. Yeah. So join us.
Okay. Tom, you want to come on up with, do you have the slides already? Excuse me, I'm on a thumb drive.
All right, there should be something on here. It looks like an empty folder, but my computer said there's something in there. There should be a file in there about the observatory.
So much more.
Well, the committee's also been working on a design to use to support our observatory, which was donated to us in pieces. I'm sorry, this is all I have, folks. I'll try to come forward maybe a little bit. My voice at its best is never very strong. I can't project like I used to. Anyway, we have had a design put forth, and Bob printed up what the skeletal structure of the base is going to be. And he also had some drawings there. And I went off of that drawing to cut some pieces for that. There should be another folder there, observatory pics. That's some equipment that Scott has loaned me, loaned the club basically, to put this thing together with. I call him, it's got a table saw, a chop saw, and a vacuum shop vac, so that they would have three colors of creation there. Go ahead.
We need the lights off, or can you see it?
Can you see that all right? All right. And there is what I have cut so far. Now there's a few more pieces that have been cut since that was taken. The Bob's calculations look like they're going to be right. That's not assembled, that's just sitting there. So it seems to fit pretty good. Go ahead, next slide. We're coating everything with some deck sealer. To
So
make it last for a long time.
It's redwood.
It's redwood.
Yep, it's all redwood.
So in addition to that, we're sealing it. So it should be around for a few years.
So we're using a clear water seal on it
Yeah.
to really bring out the richness of the redwood.
And if we just show the next couple of slides, I'll show you where the angle pieces are cut, laid out, and that's about where we are right now. And finishing those out, and it's been taking forever to dry because it's very cool. But we're getting yeah, humidity. Yeah, I'm from the Midwest originally, so humidity here is nothing. All right, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Tom.
We're also looking for donations to finish our model. We need one of these cups with the, the plastic, clear plastic lids. And then if you happen to have a spare 5mm telescope laying around, we can certainly put that in there as well.
Sorry.
One of those Lego ones.
And
Okay, for those people who don't know, especially our newer folks, Rocky Mountain Star Stare is the only premier star party done in the state of Colorado. In fact, I think it's the best one done in the West. But that's just my opinion. As you can see, our newly revamped website is has been very good. I didn't get a chance to check the numbers today. Did anyone look at our
112.
112 registrants as of today, which is doing our normal kind of trending for this time of the month in April. If we push into May, we'll start getting it a little bit tighter. We just recently went down to Walsenburg, got the county permit, at least by the county, and everyone will be aware of what we're doing, and we're doing it legally, which is always a good option.
And in fact, Steve, the county land manager, reminded us of the light ordinance there, and that he has a light meter, and he will come out and yell at neighbors if light pollution infringes on us.
And they're very big on emphasizing that there. During that trip down, we also went by the site and got to get a good view of the event center.
So much mouse poop.
Yeah, lots and lots of mouse poop everywhere. But we also did a nice assessment of looking at the land and how things are going. And honestly, the land's in great shape. It really does look very good out there.
No
Not
water
a lot
in
of
the building.
Yeah, the building's actually still standing, so it's good.
The mice are dry.
But so yeah, so we're doing quite well for that. We anticipate quite a lot going on with that as we move forward. We do have bumper stickers available right now, and today I was working out the final bits on our merchandise that we're going to be able to give away with every registrant coming up. Did you? Oh yes, that's our one of the things that every registrant will get in their packets. The other thing,
It's an actual red LED. It's not a white light bulb with red plastic, so.
yeah, the other thing is a mystery until you show up. Or unless you show up at our packet stuffing, which we'll have fairly soon.
But it
Let's just say this.
Bags of mice food?
There will be no packet stuffed at the packet stuffing.
Okay, he's being conspiracy. If you haven't registered and you are interested in it, go to the website. You can't miss it. Big red button. Press the big red button. Just don't
Don't
resist.
say that to former Mr.
Press, well, no, we had keys. Don't you know that? Not buttons. And go ahead and get ourselves registered on there. The galleries are looking very good. We're going to catch up. One of our guest speakers is here tonight. Actually, two of our guest speakers are here tonight.
And let me tell you, we're very, very excited about our guest speakers. Dr. John Spencer is back from last year. Last year, he had 6-year-old data on the New Horizons.
6 hour.
6 hour, I'm sorry, old data. Guess what he's working on now? In addition to New Horizons and Europa Lander and Juno, he's working on Cassini. So he's going to have the data from the last little suicide dive right before RMSS. He's very excited about coming out. We also have, many of you know about Bob's Knobs. There's a Bob. And it turns out Bob is a lieutenant colonel I taught with the academy, and then we separated, and it's Bob Morrow. Bob of Bob Knobs is coming out. He's going to talk about collimation, something he knows a little bit about. And we also have some great vendors. Should I do vendors?
Yes.
We're very, very excited about our vendors. First, the food truck. The bad news-ish is that the Wildflower Cafe does not do food anymore.
That's the good news.
Well, the good news is they do a little bit of food. In that, and this will be going up on the website, they have the ability to make their world-famous giant breakfast burritos and
Burritos, tamales.
Yeah.
They've got a few of these things that they have in
Right.
there. And they'll be available for people. So if we can call in.
But we're going to pre-order. I mean, we're going to have a thing because obviously they make 10 a day for the vast population of Gardner. So he actually owes me an email, and we're going to get word out to all the registrants. If you want to buy one of those meals on your way to the site, you can do it from there. But the main catered meals are gone. But Tasha and the amazing food truck are back. And the really great thing is she's bought a quiet generator and red lights. In addition to doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day with her and her staff that she's bringing, she's also going to do a 10:30 at night, which will like a little hot chocolate and a donut to warm up kind of a thing. So that, I think, is going to be great. There's a guy, retired Navy Captain Keith Mullen, who bought this company, Lumicon, and he canceled going to the Texas Star Party so that he can premiere. I'm sorry, Okie-Tech. Canceled going to Okie-Tech so he can come to RMSS to introduce his new line of Lumicon and Farpoint. And he's also donating one of our 2 raffle prizes, which is a wonderful tripod with it's basically one of your rigs for binoculars, the parallelogram deal, about a $550 retail value. He also has pledged to be our most generous door prize donor, so we're very excited about it. He said, would it be okay at night if I have my suitcase full of my $300 filters and I walk around amongst the telescope and let people try them? And I said no, because people do not want to be bothered at their telescope. You're not laughing. I thought that was funny. Yes, he'll be walking around loaning out $300 filters to use. And he's going to have amazing deals on site to buy.
We're also having gentlemen from Top Meteorite. They're a meteorite seller up in Boulder area. We'll be there selling various types of meteorites. If you get an idea of what you'd like, you got something you're kind of looking for, go ahead and email him ahead of time saying, hey, I'm going to be at RMSS. I understand you're going to give us good price breaks, which you will. And but you can get an idea of what he's got available there and what he can get to bring in ahead of time.
When you register, there's a place you can click if you'd like to volunteer. You don't have to click there. It's helpful. You can just contact us, director@rmss.org. We do need help, like a pack of stuff. We also need help at the place. We need people to help clean the building. We need people to help staff the booth. We need people to kind of do the day-to-day stuff that makes this a successful Star Party. Right now, poor Tom is the only guy who can run the credit card machine, which means he is tied. Tom used to be the only guy who can run the credit card. We need to broaden that even more broadly than. Okay, so we need volunteer help. And by the way, Matt Russell's been going to be there. All of this is his fault. I wanted to point that out. He just bought a brand new Celestron 11 with all the bells and whistles, the gorgeous mount, the filter. It's all his.
For the weather right now?
For the weather. And until roughly 15 June.
Okay, that works. Last announcement?
Last announcement.
All right, last announcement. For those people who have been in the club long enough to know that I took this position over as director 7 years ago, and it's been a wild, wild ride. A couple of years ago, Hal stepped in to give me some assistance on this because of the depth that we've moved on this and the complexity and so forth. But 7 years is enough time, so I announced it at our last RMSS committee meeting. I've also announced it on the forums, but for those people who don't monitor that, I at least wanted to make the announcement in here officially. Both Hal and myself are going to step down and give the opportunity for someone else to step up and take care of it. Ideally, what we'd like to do, if you are interested, please get with us now. When you attend RMSS, we can walk you through. There is documentation going back 30 years almost, I would think, to cover all the different things and all the dynamics. But it's been 7 years of it, but it's time to pass on. So I hope everyone can understand that after a certain point in time, you don't want to burn out. It's not a fun thing there. So I'm going to be stepping down after this year. So once we're done on the last day, that'll be my last opportunity. I will always be attending RMSS though.
Yeah, 3 years for me, and my wife would like to see me during RMSS.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to go try to find a wife.
stay away from my trailer.
Not yours. No, yours.
But yeah, I want to. If you're interested in doing it, please. It's going to be a lot easier to do it next year if you walk around with us this year, especially at the site, as we're dealing with registration problems and certain individuals and such.
And contact me or any of the board members. We can all get it all together and so forth. So.
Any RMSS questions? Cool.
What does RMSS stand for? No.
I've always wondered that.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce and Hal. And thank you, Bruce and Hal, for your years of service in RMSS. I think you would find, if you're interested in supporting RMSS as a director or co-director, I think you'll actually find that it's not, the job has gotten so much easier because of these two individuals and the amount of effort that they put into documenting what needs to get done when. It's much more efficient. It's been much more efficiently run with these two individuals running it, and with Bruce's efforts in documenting the process, I think it's going to be a lot easier for someone to assume that position. So,
and we're happy to answer the question. We're not going to refuse to talk.
Yeah, you're not going to just disappear off the face of the earth. So, you know, if you're concerned about, you know, the magnitude of the effort, I would probably say I don't think you have to worry as much as you might think because of the great efforts that these two put into paving the way and documenting the process and kind of, you know, getting a lot of the bugs and kinks worked out. There's Bruce mentioned the RMSS committee, and so there's a group of individuals that meet monthly, and that's really the core of the group that I think is going to continue on even with the change in the leadership. So, you know, as a director, you're just kind of you're orchestrating. I'm not minimizing what you guys do, but you're largely orchestrating the efforts of a established group of people who already know what needs to get done. And so please consider that. So with that, I want to be a little, let's see, Brian, I usually turn this over. Did you want to, given the fact that you're the presenter, did you want to talk a little bit about the National Photography Special Interest Group?
Oh, well, I'll just mention about the special interest group real quick. Last time we met, I booked the astrophotography group over at my home 1 week following this meeting, so next Tuesday, 6:30. If you're interested in being part of it, please get to me an email address, make sure I can read it, and then I'll make sure you're on a list that will keep you aware of what's happening with that group. The last time we met, we started going over some of the software techniques. I put together a list of, I think, 33 different softwares that are used within astrophotography. And our plan this week is to go over some of the capture software. Specifically, I know I'll probably be covering some things about Sequence Generator Pro. If others are coming and you're experienced in other capture software, please bring that expertise with you. And we'll kind of share some techniques, ways to improve the capture of images with a telescope. So that's 1 week from tonight, 6:30, and get an email to me and I'll get to you. Thank you.
All right. So just a quick acknowledgement, we've got the Bracken on Space Story website up here, that's brand new for this year. And Stephen Palago was very instrumental in the design and development of this website. So I wanna say
Thank you.
Stephen. Just as kind of a preview, once we're past RMSS, I fully intend to kind of implement a similar update modification to our CSAS website. So, Stephen, I'll need your help for that too. So, all right. So, Stephen, webmaster, do you have anything you wanted to bring up to the group? Okay. Yes, Fred. Fred, please.
Two quick things. If you have not had a chance to fill out the attendance sheet, please do. Lloyd, I'll give it to you, just for the house and whoever. And if you have not, if you are a visitor, first of all, you have not gotten your card for me to fill out right here. And I do have questions during the break of Daryl and Dave. Just provide the email address. I want to make sure it's clear enough so that I can communicate.
Okay. So I'd like to take a we kind of roll through all the business parts of our meeting. I'd like to now break for a few minutes for social break. Brian, if you start at 7:40, would that be enough time for you to?
No, but I'll do it.
7:35? Okay, 7:35. So consideration of Brian. That's just a little bit less than 10 minutes. Let's go ahead and have a break. 7:35, we'll resume, and Brian Gibson will be giving his presentation.
All right, sir.
Yes.
How did everybody benefit from that?
Yeah, he's a light guy.
All right, everyone, take your seat. Jim, would you please introduce our speaker?
Sure. Tonight's guest speaker is our very own Brian Gibson, and as you guys may remember from about 10 minutes ago, he leads our club's small astrophotography group. So he's been doing this a long time. He's done presentations for us previously. He's done them at Rocky Mountain Star Stare. He's done a workshop, and I think you're doing something this year as well too. Is that?
I think so. Oh. I haven't had any preparation.
Anyway, so Brian Gibson.
Thank you. I don't know if you had a chance, but if you do before you leave, you can take a look at some of the close-up of some of those pictures that are there. They're pretty awesome that people have done. And if I can't see you, it's because my glasses are designed to see what is in front of me, and I can't see any closer or any further away. So
we're going to go ahead and turn off the lights.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and turn off the lights if you would.
Now we can't see you either.
That's okay. All right. Capturing more extravagant universe. You know, way back in 529 BC, Plato had written this in the Republic, says, "For everyone, as I think, must see that astronomy compels the soul to look upwards and leads from this world to another." It's hard to believe, but you know, what you could see 2,500 years ago are the same stars, although they're moved a little bit at that time, but they're the same kind of things. And for all those years, they've stirred something inside of people that gives them not just a thrill, but some kind of mystery. And it's very intriguing. It has been over 2,000 years before, at this time, when they didn't have any way of looking, they didn't have any telescopes. So for way back then, what you see in the sky when you walk out at night, although without the city pollution, is what there was. But it has changed a lot. This is a presentation, in one sense, after listening to the introductions to everybody here, it's like, well, maybe I should have picked a different presentation. They happen to come in series. This is part one, actually the second part of one, part 1B of astrophotography, where specifically I wanted to cover information about some misconceptions, some common errors, some things about genres and stuff like that. But there's a third part to it, which is much more technical, and that's imaging. You can see down there, there's some basic about lenses, design, F ratios, cameras, workflows, aberrations. And in one sense, it's like this is the one presentation that is the least technical out of all of them. And I think part of the reason for that is a couple of weeks ago, I was reading someone's blog, and they were telling how they had spent $14,000 worth of astronomy equipment that was useless for astrophotography, and they didn't know it when they purchased it. And they were kind of sad, and they were saying, well, you should warn everybody before they get involved in astrophotography that it might really hurt them, at least financially. So I thought, well, I'll add something to this. Part two, which could have up to 3 presentations as well, is specific information about capturing. How do you capture the good photons and get rid of the bad ones that are coming through your telescope? And part 3 deals with calibrating and post-processing. Once you capture this information, how do you get it so you can see what's really there and throw away the stuff that isn't there, or the stuff that certainly shouldn't be there? So anyway, this is again for probably more for the beginner or the second step beginner, maybe the third step beginner, to help you kind of look at if you're interested in doing or considering starting astrophotography, what would be some good choices to make? And what are some errors to avoid that would be become a problem? Okay, real quickly, I want to show you 11 photographs. Why don't you kind of keep a mental tally of which one of these you think may have been taken by amateurs rather than some kind of professional observatory, or maybe even the Hubble Space Telescope. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Bob.
No. 6, 7. Blood Moon. 8. Pretty
I
amazing.
think that was so we took it down.
Just a guess.
For that's 10. This one. 11. All right. Now, I can't see your hands, but how many would think at least half of those were taken by amateurs? All right. How many think maybe 70% of them could have been taken by amateurs?
Sure.
I still get a lot of people. We got some pretty smart people. How many think all of them were taken by amateurs? Only 3 or 4. Now, that's really great. I know the rest of you are really smart too, but I kind of tricked you. If you look at some of these, those that are really observant, I had to do something to stop you. I would put down observatories that supposedly took them on the side. So if you read that, I goofed you up. But every single one of these, the point is, were taken by amateur astrophotographers. In fact, 4 of them in that group were taken by members of our own club. And that's pretty impressive. You can do a lot. You might be thinking, well, is it good enough? I mean, if I'm going to do astrophotography, why not just go online, like my brother told me, and go to and get your Hubble space pictures, and you can put that on your phone instead of your own pictures up on the wall or something. Well, let's take a look at this. Is it worth it? Is it good enough? This picture on the right was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, and the one on the left was taken by a 14.5 inch, which is very small, Starmaster telescope. Now, I will grant the one on the right looks better. But just think of that guy that made the one on the left. For every dollar he spent, Hubble had to spend $1 million to take that picture. So I think, for the difference in cost, that is pretty amazing in 14-inch telescope. So yeah, is it worth it? Can't be. Maybe you're thinking, well, okay, I'm a visual guy, and I like to look out at the stars at night, and I'm not really interested in photography. That's okay, that's fine. You don't have to do photography, but there are some pluses that might be worth considering. Maybe you love those photons coming down through the camera lens, bouncing off the mirrors and going into the back of your eye, and it titillates somehow the fovea of your eye, and then it's really exciting. Actually, I enjoy that too. I remember looking at one of the quasars through Bob's scope and thinking, wow, 5 billion years across the galaxy and it's finally reaching us? That's really cool. Well, what is we're saying? Take a look at this. I was listening to a blog by Astro Dan, probably about 6 months ago. He had said, I had talked with someone recently who was extremely disappointed after buying a telescope for the first time. He pointed his telescope to the sky for the first time, and he was in for a very serious reality check. What he expected to see. On the right is what he did see. And of course, he looked to see if it was plugged in or maybe there was electrical something missing. The telescope, maybe he wasn't pointing in the right direction. It turns out you can see if you're expecting something on the left and you get on the right, you've got a problem. Well, obviously, 2 things are in play. The size of the lens is capturing it, but also when you're looking at it real time, you've got a 7, 6, 7, 8 millimeter pupil that works real time. It doesn't keep adding photons. I mean, it would be neat if you could, but that's not the way it works. So when he looked at it, he was actually looking at the right spot. And perhaps if you look closely in that circle, you might see, you've got good eyes, you might see a little fuzzy patch. And that's what the Crab Nebula looks like visually. Yeah, he was disappointed. He wanted his money back. Well, the point I want to make is it's okay to do both. You don't have to give up visual. Nobody's asking you to, because there's great thrill in doing that, knowing the stars and feeling yourself a way around with it. But if you're interested and want to try it, my suggestion is go ahead and give it a shot. Yeah, good shot. Now, you might be thinking, maybe it's beyond my capabilities. Now, if you haven't noticed, that lady is looking through the wrong side of the telescope. Maybe that's where you feel you're at. Or maybe you're just all excited and you've got the passion to do it, and you just need to be pointed in the right direction. He's also looking on the wrong side of the spotting scope, but he's excited. Well, some aspects of astrophotography can be very easy, very enjoyable, and very rewarding with a minimal effort. Some, however, can be incredibly challenging, very costly, and frustrating. I like to think of photographing the cosmos as kind of like, maybe it's playing a sport. It could be like playing a musical instrument. Raise your hand if you've ever played a musical instrument. Well, that's almost everybody here. Now, because there are professionals that do it, and professionals that play sports, doesn't mean that you couldn't. Doesn't mean you couldn't get some joy from it. Being a good cook, not just a cook, but a good one, what does it do? It takes a lot of practice to be good. It takes a lot of practice to be very good. So it's really not any different for astrophotography. It's the same thing. The amount of effort you put into it, you're much more likely to get better results. Not a guarantee, but you're more likely. But there are things that are fun for just, for minimal effort. Because there are professionals, doesn't mean you can't do it good, doesn't mean that you can't do it well. And also the skill that you acquire, it's a skill you have to work on. It's not quite so simple. So you're going to hear from me actually some of the things that would almost discourage you from getting into astrophotography. They're not meant to discourage you at all. What they are meant to do is to allow you to be wise in some of your decisions. Now, I'll say right up front, I am not a professional. I'm not a pro. I'm not even a master at this. I'm just a fellow person taking this journey, same journey many of you are interested in perhaps taking and learning, and I'm learning as I go. Because I read a lot and ask a lot of questions, I probably made less errors than a lot of people, although that may change next year. Who knows? We'll find out. There's a reward for great personal satisfaction for a job well done. And I'm going to go through some of this quickly. It's a way that you can express to others, if you have some photos, some of your passion. And you can proceed at your own pace. You don't have to go fast. I have some examples of where this was a positive and where it was not a positive. All right, let's go on to specific things for today. Misconceptions, some common errors, again, designed to give you some input on what maybe should you consider, or how are you thinking, is it right or wrong? And let's do this. It's not so much, if someone were to ask you why is astrophotography so difficult, assuming that it is, my understanding, my feeling is that it can be so difficult because there's so many different ways to make mistakes. You know, it's like if you're cooking, you burn the food and it's ruined. Here, there's 1,000 things you can do, or 500 things you can do that can make it not as good as what you want. Let's go ahead. You might be thinking, well, this is way too hard for me, right? Well, it can be, it could be. Just in way of passing, I happen to like school, done a lot of schooling. I have degrees in physics, in chemistry, mathematics, theology, other studies in architecture, astronomy, optics, nuclear engineering, electronics. Out of all those things, when I look at astrophotography, it's as challenging as any of them. Now, you don't have the mathematics and stuff like that, but it can be really hard. It can be complicated, not because it's super difficult, but because there's so many things to control to do it well. There is an aspect, though, that can make it quite easy, and it can be very, very rewarding. Let's take a look at that. Well, another possible error would be maybe you think this is too expensive. Well, yes, it can be very expensive. It can be quite expensive. The key to not being discouraged is to make fewer errors and spend money that is worthwhile. I can remember Martin Poop, maybe you remember him back in October, he gave a presentation. He used to tell me all the time that astrophotography cost him his first 2 marriages. And I was wondering if he was kidding, but a little smile, I think there was some truth to it. About 6 months ago, I met a lady called named Kathy Lanigan. She wanted to donate to me a telescope and some things that her husband had. Her husband, Jim, had worked on astrophotography up in Rockford for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that, and he had passed away, and he had all this equipment. And so I thought, well, that's really interesting. I went up there and talked with her, and I asked, tell me about your husband's work. What was he able to accomplish? Take some good pictures and things like that. And I remember being shocked by her answer. She said, well, he never took one photo that he was happy with. And I kind of sat back, my gosh, not in 7 years, spending what to me, he probably was well over $100,000 worth of women and not having one photo to account for it. Something's not right here. So there's got to be some problem with that. Well, knowing the pitfalls that can, before you invest in something, and if you are passionate about it, inevitably you will probably spend several $1,000s if you will follow through with it, but you don't want it to be the wrong equipment. And lots of people have experiences where that is. Maybe you're saying, well, I don't have the equipment, buy it, it's expensive. Well, yeah, it's probably you don't have, maybe not have the equipment. However, having said that, there is a tremendous amount you can do starting, if you start from the beginning. To get started, all it really takes is a camera and a tripod, minimum. If you add an intervalometer, maybe a cable release thing, then you can easily quadruple what you could accomplish with just the camera alone. If you add some kind of tracking mount, you can't see it now, but if you get a chance afterwards, I have one set up here, one for a DSLR camera, a simple tracking mount. Your potential increases well over 1,000-fold in what you can do. So if you're thinking of beginning, it's an excellent place to begin. And you can do a lot, and you can get some rewarding, some good pictures. Maybe you're really talented. You think, well, this is easy. I've seen a lot of people, put cameras on tripods and take pictures of the sky. It's just not worth doing. Well, yeah, until you try it, it looks easy. But it can be a challenge as well. This is not like taking pictures of landscapes. It's not usually, once you start getting good at it, you're not going to take one photograph. You may take many, what we call light frames. You may take 20, 30, 50, in some cases 100 photos that are light. And then you're going to start maybe thinking, well, I want to make this picture look really good. So I'm going to take what they call dark frames. I'll take a whole bunch of those. And then I'll take bias frames and flat frames. And all of a sudden you're all framed out. There are ways to make it better and simpler. For example, if you get involved, here's a little device I made just for the fun of it, actually to make my life a little easier. It fits on the top of my telescope, and it's a simple light. So I can take my light frames, my dark frames, when I put this on, my flats, my biases all at one time. I don't have to wait for the morning or shine at somebody's computer screen. So you can be creative and do things like that. And it's nice and portable. Point is, you can be creative. Parts of it can be very rewarding with minimal effort. However, if you're one who likes to do things very well, expect to find that there's a significant effort involved, significant time, and perhaps significant money. Just went the wrong way. Now, but think about John F. Kennedy when he gave his challenge going to the moon. He added this, and I think it applies here as well. We do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Some of us just love a challenge, and you want to accomplish something that other people haven't. If you do this, there's a good chance you will have achieved something beyond which most humans would ever even dream about doing. And you've had the ability to do that. How far you go depends on your passion, your effort, and all that. But it can be done. All right, a couple of errors real quickly. A simple error that you don't want to make is going cheap. When I say going cheap, I don't mean necessarily price. You don't want to buy something because it's cheap. You don't also want to buy something because it's expensive, thinking that's good. The point is you want to buy something for a reason. You want to buy something with a purpose in mind. You must have a goal. Decide ahead of time what you're going to do. So many parents will go ahead and, they find out their son is interested in astronomy. So they'll go buy one of these humdinger telescopes and they think they're just the best things ever. Well, my feeling is that it probably will do more to destroy or discourage a person that gets one of these things. How many of you have had one of these in the past? Well, about half of you. The other half aren't here, see? So buy with a purpose. One little hint is if you ever on a box see where they tell you how powerful it is, like 25, 120, 99.9% probability. It's well, I shouldn't say that you should burn it, but give it to a 2-year-old instead. Okay, number 2, buying a woefully inadequate mount. And this is a little bit more advanced, and I'm not saying you shouldn't buy an inexpensive mount. Depends on what you're doing. These things like the DSLRs, $350, $300 to $400, you can get a nice one, and it'll track the stars. And if you're using Wi-Fi, you can take some beautiful photographs that are longer. But if you get further along in the thing, one of the mistakes, and I'll mention this more than once, is that people will often underestimate the mount. And I think that was part of the problem of Dr. Jim Lanigan. He had a mount that he made himself and a fork mount on top of it, and he couldn't get that thing to track well. There was backlash, all kinds of problems. So he never was able to get a good photograph. He spent a lot of money. He had astrophysics guiding cameras, big sis, all really expensive equipment, but discouraged. If you are at a point where you're going to buy a mount, make sure you buy for astrophotography, acquire a very good precision German equatorial mount when you move beyond a simple DSLR. But again, don't let anybody tell you working with a DSLR is kid stuff. That's great. I mean, you can make fantastic photos. We had a chance to meet Dr. Roger Clark, which is a scientist up in Denver, headed up he's in 5 different planetary programs. He designed the electronics for the filters for the Cassini project. I mean, he's done a lot of work. He almost exclusively uses my exact setup there. A little different camera, but almost the same kind of thing. And if you look on his site, clarkvision.com, I believe it is, worth looking at. A lot of great articles and publications. You want to learn some things. He's got a lot of things written down there. It's almost like going to school, just looking at his site. Roger Clark up in Denver. Anyway, he almost exclusively uses this. And then he laughs at those people who get all the other equipment. Well, he is a very controversial guy. I told him that, and he said, "You're right, I am." So I guess when you have good results, you can do whatever you like. Another possible error is starting with a long focal length. This was, I think, also part of the difficulty with Dr. Lanigan is that he had a telescope that was very, very long focal length. That and a poor mount. No way he could get decent photograph from it and have good results. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying don't start there. For goodness sake, start with something where you're much more likely to be successful. Many of the deep sky objects, however, require large and long focal length telescopes. Much harder to be successful in astro imaging if you work with a long telescope. Now, having said that, there's some astrophotography that's absolutely required for and will work. So it's not automatically hit. Impulse buying, we all like sales. Wife does especially. But the point is you want to buy with a purpose and have a plan, decide ahead of time. Now this is really hard. I remember when after we had lost our home in the fire and I lost my astronomy stuff, I figured, hey, I'm going to get some money from the insurance guys and I can go buy that nice big telescope that I've always wanted. You know, I had aperture fever. I was breaking out all over the place. Turned out I didn't get any money from my telescopes. I only got half of what I was supposed to. So it was a little discouraging, but the worst mistake ever is telling my wife that, okay, I'm not going to buy any astronomy stuff until I know where we are. We've rebuilt the house and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, that took 3 years. So in any case, what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a purpose. You need to decide ahead of time what you want to do. Some of the information, hopefully I'll get to it here, will be able to help you make that choice. In reality, we all want to do all of it. I want to do deep sky. I want to do what? I want to do it all. Well, that's asking for some real serious problems and some serious financial problems if you try to do it all at one time. Pick something you like to do. Educate, read a lot, explore, test around, make some friends, get some advice, get some more advice. Not everybody knows what they're talking about. In fact, almost everybody has a different plan for everything on how to do something, but that's okay. That's a little bit how you learn. Buying emotionally, however, can be very expensive. And this is one of the few hobbies where mistakes are usually very costly. Camera compromises. This probably does not mean exactly what you might think it is, because camera compromises, all I'm trying to say here is buy a camera that will suit what you are trying to accomplish. Now, if we back up and we talk about single lens reflex cameras like this, perhaps 75, 80% of people that shoot astrophotography will use a Canon camera, and most of the rest of them will shoot a Nikon. And there are a few that will try to do it with other things. Well, it's okay, but realize that there's a serious problem. A lot of the software that's out there will only work with a Canon or a Nikon. So you need to make sure ahead of time you do your research on what kind of camera will work well. It's not the most expensive. It doesn't have to be. It can be an inexpensive. It can be a used one. One I had bought that was able to use was an old Rebel. I think $125 is all I paid for it at that time. And you can use that. And you can get some really good results. But you can spend a lot too. But that's where you need to do your research ahead of time. Look into light sensitivity. There's a lot of things. Sensor size. Because of time, I won't go to it. Make sure it tries to meet its goal. Okay, errors. There's all kinds of errors that you can make. Software choices. Test them seriously before you buy them. Here's an example of, on the bottom there, some of the different types of software packages that you could get. Software is for capturing, for guiding, for calibrating, for registering your photos, for stacking them, for post-processing, for focusing your cameras, for doing polar alignment, for doing what they call plate solving, or even controlling your dorm. And there's others, for example, image sequencing. There's lots. Now, some programs will do quite a few of these. However, there are also a lot of good programs out there that are free. And if you want to start with those, it's a good place to start with free. You're going to end up having more programs, but it takes some to do it. And by the way, if you're interested on a copy of that, I have put together those 33 different software packages and what their costs are, which ones are free, which ones spent, and a little bit about them and what they'll do. If you're interested, it's a good place to start if you're interested. If you put your email address and name on a little card of paper, and then write down Astro Software, I will email or get you a copy of that. I have 1 or 2 copies up here if somebody would like. Another friend, I'll make this really fast. Doing it alone, my gosh, make a friend. Dr. Lanigan spent those 7 years up in that room by himself. His wife said he didn't have any friends. He spent his whole last 7 years of his life failing as astrophotography. And I felt terrible. I decided, hey, I don't want to make those mistakes. Anyway, there's a lot you can learn from reading in books, but wisdom comes a lot faster from other people that have struggled through what you are or what you may be struggling through at this time. Make some friends, read views, get help. I happen to be a believer in starting with a CCD is probably not the wisest thing. The reason is it can be much more complicated. Now, there are a lot of people out there that say, well, go ahead and buy the CCD and a cooled camera and all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, you're asking for things that's much steeper learning curve. I'll write this down. Steeper learning curve with multiple inputs and filters. As you start near the top of the ladder, the likelihood of frustration greatly increases and disappointment. And that's what we want to try to prevent or try to minimize. Please understand, a CCD, which is normally is the camera that's attached to the telescope, they're more sensitive. Every single chip, by the way, they're all mono chips, but a CCD, you have I think I have a picture here. Yeah, here we go. CCD, you have the light from the telescope going through a colored filter. So all of those pixels are recording red. And then you change it and take another picture, and then all of them are green, and then the blue. And maybe some light filter, maybe hydrogen alpha filter, maybe an oxygen filter, maybe a sulfur filter. There's a lot of different filters you can use. You make your photos really impressive. And the more you get into it, the more you want to try these other things. And that's great, but it's complicated right up front. If you were to start with a DSLR, for example, or a one-shot color camera, that's, you know, it's the same kind of pixels, although mostly of them are CMOS, a little bit different. But the point is, half of them are covered with a green color filter already. 1/4 of them are covered with a red, and another 1/4 are covered with a blue. So the computer keeps track of which pixels have which colors, and then it makes the color picture for you with one picture. Now, having said that, there are advanced things you can do to break those out. If you're familiar with Photoshop, save it as a lab type of photo, and then you have individual channels you can work with it, red, green, and blue. And so there's a lot you can do. Now, it's not the same resolution, but I have a hard time saying I would not suggest you start with a CCD. If you've done the best you can with a DSLR, then was the time to move on to that. So there's some of the common errors I just mentioned. There are a couple others I just wanted to add. Well, after writing this, I thought, well, probably one of the hardest one, I'll do one at a time here, is high expectations. If you are expecting your photos to look like Hubble, you might as well go to bed early. It takes a while to do that. Now, you look at the work that Martin has done there, and that's phenomenal. That is as good as, I mean, I would expect the Hubble telescope to make a photo like that. But again, he's been doing this for a long time. He has $250,000 worth of photographic equipment, and he has perfected every single step. As he didn't start with that equipment, he started with less. And then he did it so that every piece of equipment he was getting the utmost performance out of that. And then he could add another one. Instead of like what I like to do is, hey, if this isn't working well, let's get something else that will work faster and better. Well, it's probably not the wisest thing. There's also one other problem, and I think I have been guilty of this as well, is that if someone comes up to you It shows you some photographic work that they've done. And you're used to seeing the Hubble stuff. Maybe you never even made a photograph yourself. You look at it and say, "Oh yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, a little fuzzy on the side there, but boy, that's good. You know, and you think you're being nice. Well, you just deflated that guy's effort for probably several hours worth of work. Don't do that. I mean, you don't know where the person is at, and I'm guilty of this myself. But we need to change our thinking. Here's what I'd like you to think. Here's what I think would be a great thing to say. Say something like this. Wow, that's great. What an amazing accomplishment. Wow, that's great. What an amazing accomplishment. Try that once. Ready? Wow, that's great. What an amazing accomplishment. Bob, wow, that's great. What an amazing accomplishment. Now,
I get that a lot.
the point is you need to learn to understand that is an amazing accomplishment depending on where the person is. If they're gonna show it to you, they've done the best they've been able to at that point with whatever they spent, whatever equipment they've had. So it is amazing. They put a lot of effort into that. So encourage them. Don't discourage them. Based on where they are, their journey, that was probably an amazing photograph. Aperture fever. Oh man, did I have aperture fever? I wanted a big scope. It took me 3 years. I'm glad I wasn't able to buy one for 3 years, looking back now. Bigger does not mean better, at least in the beginning. It means harder. Now, having said that, I would sure love to have one of these. I don't know where this picture is taken, but it looks like that guy's having fun. I was looking up, other guys has a 42-inch scope that he drags it out. Someone else I heard has a 72-inch. You know, and there are a lot of things you can do with this, but not astrophotography very well. Okay. Last one, not making the mount your most important purchase. I've covered this before, but I want to emphasize a lot of people, when you look at the cost involved in a moderate setup, it's not unusual at all that half of all your cost goes into the mount. Point is, you need to study that, find out something that will this do the job with the type of telescope I have or plan on having in the future? And will it take the weight? Is it going to be stable? Great cost and frustration result of a less capable mount. All right, some quick genres. Now, this probably are familiar with a lot of these. I'm not sure what time I have here, but I can't see my watch.
15 minutes.
15 minutes? Yep. Is that? Oh, gee. Okay. All right. There are different ways to use. Lots of different ways to use your telescope for capturing things. I'll just go over some of these really, really fast. Short exposures, star fields. This is a great place to start because it's really cheap. The one green dollar sign means it's about as little as you can get. We're talking less than 30 seconds doing nightscapes. Here's all you need to do. Have camera put it on a tripod, minimum. Now, about a month ago, I was coming back from San Antonio, and I stopped in Albuquerque on the north side of town there, and skies were beautiful. So I took out my tripod, and this is exactly what I did. Went and took a picture, and you can actually see Orion up there. I mean, the stars are magnificent with just a little bit of what you have there. So it's still interesting. So even though it was one photograph, it's nothing complicated with a trailer in the background. Star trails. Star trails, they're a lot of fun, especially if you haven't done them before. They're longer exposures, obviously on a fixed tripod. Need a cable release often. But here's one where a person put together 5 of them. It looks like the moon and probably Venus or something there. But star trails are fun. You can do that. What do you need for that? Pretty much the same. Very inexpensive. You can start getting more by cable releases, intervalometers, and doing other things. But again, this can still be pretty inexpensive. Lunar imaging. Lunar is very different than everything else because it's big and it's interesting. There's actually detail and it's bright. So it's almost like shooting daylight film. You can have very short exposure. So you can take pictures. Now, this was just one with I took with this camera actually. I don't even know if I had it on a guider, but it's just a simple one shot with the moon. In this case, it was 200 millimeters, not a very long focal length, but it's a big chip. So when you blow it up to 100%, it still looks fairly decent. What you really would like for lunar is a long focal length, as well as with the planets, so you can get the greater magnification. And here's some others, Newtonians, and there's all kinds of choices you can make for doing the moon. Here's cameras with looks like a 2 or maybe 300 millimeter lens on one. The other one looks actually very much like the camera scope I have there. But it's interesting to know, if you're shooting a wide angle camera, that first picture in the top is how big your moon will look. And I guarantee you that won't impress anybody. You shoot at even 300 millimeters on the bottom left. I shot mine at 200 and I was able to enlarge it. But that's still small. You're not using very much. You have bigger, longer focal length. Look at 1600 millimeters. It would be really sufficient for that. Someone took this photo and it looks like it's way over sharpened, but it was interesting because he outlined it in yellow there. Said that was Hadley Rill. Well, Hadley Rill, I forget what it was, 15. Apollo 15 or 16 landed there, and then they took samples from the Rill little area. Planetary imaging. Planetary imaging is very different again. You have really bright things and really small objects. But this is going to be a completely different type of astrophotography. What you need is something like this. No, not really. It was supposed to be funny, but obviously it's not. Here's an example of a photograph that a person did with not an expensive scope. And look at that Jupiter. Now that looks amazing. You do need good optics. I think he probably, I don't know if he used that tow cam, but a lot of people will even use webcams from their thing. Or any kind of camera that you can shoot really fast with, or video cameras, or the faster you can shoot it, the software can preserve the best of every image and put them all together. So this may be 600 or 700 photographs to make that look like that. But boy, is that worth it. Your software does it. You can go to bed, sleep at night, wake up, and do some more processing for another 6 hours. I mean, however long it might take. And you can get some pretty impressive things in Saturn. Here's an interesting photo, I thought. 2011, this is the best this person could do with his software and his equipment. 12, 13, 14. Wow, the quality is really improving. Really blew my mind was a photograph on the right there. I was taken with an iPhone. Now, he had a Dob, 28-inch Dob, so it was a pretty big scope. But look at the size. I'm not positive, but I think that's an iPhone camera on his fingertip. It didn't take much to get that kind of photograph. But if you take a lot of them and process it, it's amazing what you can do. Okay, wide field. Wide field is a real sweet point in astrophotography. You can use fast lens. There's all kinds of things you can accomplish with it. And it's manageable. You can do it. And yet, there's skills where you can learn to do it really well and have great results. Now, you might look at a camera like this and say, well, that's a little baby camera. I want a grown-up camera, or a telescope. Actually, that's a pretty good little telescope. Now, it is very wide field. It's not going to get any much magnification. But for a lot of nebulas and things like that, especially the larger ones, you can get some beautiful photos out of that. Because I don't know if that's an apochromatic or a doublet, I don't remember. But the one on the right also is a astrograph by ASA. I think that's from Austria, quite sure. Williams Electronic. These are one kind of telescopes that you would put together to make wide field images. TelView is excellent. It's an apochromatic, which means there's 3 lenses rather than 2. But in this particular case, they put a field flattener in with it, so there's actually 4. So you can hook this right up to your DSLR and take beautiful photos that are going to be sharp edge to edge. And you can't do that without a field flattener for most of the other ones. Okay, back to the single lens reflex. You can have things that will mount it. I can show you several examples. Again, I think I showed some of those. And just because of time, I'm going to go through this kind of a deep sky, large objects. All of a sudden, you're in a position where you need better quality. If you're looking for faint fuzzies, as they call them, which is deep sky, small objects, that's even more so. For the wide objects, however, you can do a lot. For example, this is not a real expensive telescope. I think it's a doublet, but they use a special lens. It's an EDU. It's a low dispersion lens, so it doesn't give much chromatic aberration. And then it uses other coatings and stuff. So you get an amazingly good photograph for a pretty inexpensive telescope. Depending on your budget, those would be good ones to maybe go with. My first one was one like this, where I had a lot of problems doing, but this was back in the film days, probably would be a whole lot different. But there's Celestron and Meade, I believe, are those. And deep sky, of course, the object is limit. This guy has looks like a Takahashi. Very nice. This is one of Martin's cameras. It's 12-inch before he got a 17. You can see the camera's on there. It looks like a $25,000 paramount mount. But again, every single detail of spacing was 100%. That's why you get photos like that. And then you end up getting one of these planeways. There are others. If I were to show you others, well, you can do, there's solar telescopes and things like that. You can do photograph the spectrum. You can photograph the asteroids or the comets, even radio astronomy, but not with a regular telescope. Infrared, balloon, things like that. There's lots of other things you can do. All right, if I were to simplify it, if you have a choice, 1, 2, 3, 4, inexpensive would be a fixed photography, a great place to start, little cost. You don't even need the tracking. Short exposures, less than 1 second. There's a lot you can do. It's going to take a little bit more knowledge, a little more equipment, a little more skills, but not that much different in terms of equipment, and still pretty inexpensive. That would be a second step. Wide field. There are people who do wide field and have no desire to go beyond because it's so challenging and to get perfection on it. I'm starting to feel that way. If I can be really successful on something, I would rather do that than be halfway successful on something that I can't accomplish well. So everybody's going to be different. And then tracked and guided narrow field photography. Long exposures means accurate guiding, CCDs, lots of work, and usually a lot of money, lots of stability. All right. And then if you were to start, where would you start? And since our group seems to be a lot more advanced, maybe this isn't the place to spend it, but I'll mention it while I'm here. These are some just helpful hints to try to save people that might be starting some frustration and anxiety. Again, we have our friend there. You don't need a big, huge telescope. And this was another joke. Okay, fine. Start simple. Start with what you have, what you can easily get. And when you're ready to move beyond, here's a great site. If you're interested in his name, just ask for the 5 top entry-level, high-quality astro telescopes, and your email on that, and I'll send it to you. It's a really good article, a great place to start, and some good equipment. If you're completely new, real quick, obviously use what you have, start nightscapes. And this also, if you want to ask for first step, I'll give this information to you. Learn how to use an intervalometer. Learn how to take ones and cable release. I'm going to just go through these really quick. You only have These were taken, this is some of the nightscape ones, beautiful photos. Now, it's hard, you can't see a whole lot of detail, but you do see the Milky Way. And you can be creative with it. So if you're a beginner, this is a great place to start. When you're successful, learn how to calibrate and your processor ones. I'm going to go on. Learn how to use an intervalometer, or you can use sequencing like software, Sequence Generator Pro. It's just an example of an intervalometer. Learn how to take and combine pictures, making flats, lights, darks, like that device I showed you. It can be easy once you've done it a few times. This is a picture of my telescope. Notice it's not in an observatory yet. Although I'm working on that, actually, I can see there are 4 or 5 observatories going up here all at one time. It's kind of exciting. But you notice that filter on top of mine for doing the darks and the flats and biases. Very simple, compact. The point is you want to make it a lot of fun. If you haven't done so, learn the constellations, some of the major names, go out and enjoy that. And just kind of in closing, you say, okay, I got that, what's next? Well, there are next steps, and if you're interested, I will send these to you. You can write down, ask for next step. What do you do beyond the beginning? And there's a list of things you can do. I'll go through some of these again. There are also cameras that will do tracking for you, but they have to work with software. Shoot wide field. Let me go. Oh, just want to show you real quick. You think you have it bad? This is Singapore. Now, Justin Nig, I met him at the AIC last October, or whatever it was. The photograph on the left is the one he took with his camera. And now that is light pollution at nighttime. But by doing the right post-processing techniques, he was able to make that picture on the right. So you can do that. You can take that. There's a lot you can do. And someone had talked about ultra high contrast filters. Yes, they do work to take out a lot of the light pollution. You can also use hydrogen alpha. It shows you how you can put them in your camera. The point is that it only looks at a narrow band of light, and you can add those to your photograph. So there's a lot you can do that would be a next step. If you're ready to buy, that is another thing. I won't go into that. Different types of scopes you can buy. Small, let me just end up here. Okay. This happens to be an observatory. I'm in the middle of the building. Unfortunately, my wife said it can't look like a regular observatory. We have an Italian-looking house. I said, well, I'll make an Italian observatory. So it's actually going to be, this is where it was yesterday, 2 stories, and 20 feet up in the air, I'll have my telescope. But the one point I want to show out here is that center column. Now that is 1.5 feet thick concrete. It is not touching any of the base. So if somebody walks around, it's not causing any vibration, and it goes into the ground 5 feet, and it doesn't touch the concrete. And I just have a 5-inch telescope. Now, I think this will probably take more than that. But the point is, if you start doing astrophotography, think not only about your mount and your camera, but also your pier to make sure it's stable. And we won't go to the buy, but there are all kinds of books you can look at. I have a couple here you can look at. And there's some additional resources you can get. Working with clubs, online things, join some forums, and that's how you learn. Final word, and I always like saying this because if you haven't done it, you'll regret it. Dress warm. And bring something to read and hot to drink. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that presentation, and we'd like to present you with the official Colorado Springs Astronomical Society and RMSS mug. So thanks for doing this tonight. Appreciate it.
Any questions?
Any questions?
How did you make, sorry.
How did I make
How
this?
did you make that, a light box? Yeah.
This is cool. What this is a paper thin piece of, I think
Electroluminescent.
yeah, electroluminescent panel. I just took some acrylic with a little space in between, and it fits in there. And then I bought the one that works on a battery pack, so I don't have to plug it in. And that's halfway, and like this. And so it will make, because it's not focused well, if I had to, I could put other filters in here, but it will then make an even lighting for doing your flats. Again, that purpose of that is if you have irregularities or dust on the film, I mean on your lens, or spots, things like that, it can get rid of that. So that was a cool little thing. Actually, what happened is I saw the one that Scott made, and I figured, hey, I like that, but I didn't want to carry something that big, so I made it small.
I have a 12-inch telescope too. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but all this has to do is fit on top of the lens, and it does. Actually, it's from a fireplace through, cut a hole in it. It took me one afternoon to make it. Anything else? Yes.
How'd you get permission from the homeowners association to put that dome?
Oh, I didn't ask. I didn't ask. No, actually, we don't have a homeowners association. And I live in an area where it overlooks the city anyway. So no, I'm fine with that. I did check Pikes Peak building, and because I really, no offense, but I hate those guys. They make you do all kinds of things that cost money that are totally worth it. I mean, some things are good, but some of them are absurd. And I was so happy to find out that I didn't even need a permit because it was less than 200 square feet, 176. And I didn't bring electrical in, and I'll just have data going in. I can hook up a solar system, and there's no heat, so we're good. And I almost, seriously, I gave it some thought about leaning it. My brother emailed me back, lean it, Colorado Springs Leaning Tower of Pisa, and I'll give you $500. I said, well, I think that would mess up the Pier Center thing, so I didn't. But if anybody wants to help move a dome this weekend or something, let me know. I need to move one from the east side. Anyway, any other questions? Yes.
How much does an intervalometer cost?
Good question. Intervalometers are all prices probably from about, I've seen them as low as $75 to like $150 if you buy a better one like Pronto like this. I don't remember what I paid for it. I love this because it has a lot of steps. It's much more precise. But I would start with something really simple. On top of that, a lot of the cameras now have the intervalometers kind of built in. So you might not even need one.
You can get a wired one off of Amazon for $15.
$15. All right, there you go. $15.
Wires.
Wired.
All right, any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
Where did you get the electroluminescent?
Pardon?
Where did you get the electroluminescent panel?
eBay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So Fred needs the
I
attendance
don't know,
sheet,
$19 or something.
and if you borrowed one or two of his pens, please return those to him.
Yeah, you can get these different sizes.
Thank you very much. That concludes next meeting. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. That was great.
I'm gonna give you my email, and then that list 30.